Welcome to NBA Film Room. Today we're going to be breaking down the Boston Celtics against the New York Knicks from the other night. It was a big blowout in favor of the Boston Celtics. I think there's a bunch of interesting things with their offense that I want to point out today. We're going to get right to it. So right away here, they are spacing five out. They end up swinging the ball to Tatum, and they bring Cornet up to set a screen. I think an interesting part, we mentioned it in our contenders episode, they're a lot better with Cornet on the floor than Porzingis this year. So, I know Porzingis wasn't here today. So this is not even the full power Celtics, and probably they shoot more threes with Porzingis. But yeah, I mean, Knicks made a concerted effort to bring Towns up to the top of screens early in the game, and it did not work very well here. This is honestly pretty high for how the Knicks typically play it, and you know, Tatum makes a three ball here. A lot of early in the game, they were letting Tatum really go to work. There's no OG and Anunoby. I think that's an important thing to point out for the Knicks, but I don't think it takes away from, uh, what Tatum did out there that night. Um, so another thing with Celtics here, they run a ton of isolation. They're third in the league in isolation attempts. So a lot of these isolations are ending up in these situations. A lot of it's for Tatum and Brown. There's some Porzingis post up stuff too, but they're trying to get these guys isolations in like the short part of the field. And obviously they have a Brunson mismatch. Achua, this is honestly pretty poor defense by him, really just roaming, not even very aggressively roaming. It ends up in a Horford three. So obviously this is a 3-1 attempt, but the Celtics' intent here is to post up with Jaylen Brown. I think that gets, nobody ever talks about the fact that they're trying to get rim attempts and teams are taking away their rim attempts and giving up the threes. The Celtics shoot a record most. They're only at 48 now. It was closer to 50 at some point this year. This game, they only shot 39. Of course, they made more than they normally do. So, I mean, that's a crazy game. And then again, this possession too, Jaylen Brown fadeaway jumper. There were like 4 or 5 of those this game from Jaylen Brown, right? And that's like a significant part of their offense. And yeah, right here, they run a stride 5-out pick and roll here to get this mismatch. They're trying to get a switch on the Brunson, and the Knicks are really trying to avoid giving up that mismatch. Because what they're trying to do here, they're trying to get this switch to get Brown on this side of the floor, right? They're trying to get him with fully spaced floor with a mismatch, and then they're either going to get a layup or a three. Is what's going to end up happening. But the Knicks are really trying to not give up that mismatch. Ends up in a Derek White three anyway, right? So even when they're not trying to, shoot threes, the alternative is shooting threes. I think nobody right away you see what they end up doing on this next play here. They do get the mismatch here, and now they got Brown. They try to get the ball to Hart comes out early, and Brunson's fronting, so you could make this skip pass, or you could just swing it to Tatum. And look how high they're playing Cat here, like really high on the screen, and Tatum shoots it from the K. All right. Some days this offense just, if Tatum's firing like that, it's ridiculous. All right. So here's a rare instance of an actual designed 3-point attempt. They run a staggered for Tatum. Pretty common for them to do this to get Tatum attacking the paint. And what it does instead is now Pritchard, they have run along. Hart's in help here because, if this is a real roll opportunity, Hart's in roll, and here he's also looking at Cornet running towards a shooter in Hauser. Like he's looking at that, and Pritchard gets completely lost. Cadis, that's a great screen here on Towns. I don't think Towns really ever saw it anyway, but yeah, design 3 here. If Hart runs with him, what probably ends up happening is this screen for Hauser is probably the next thing. But this is a really just great play design as well. I think this is so much more in depth than the Celtics are just shooting threes. And I think what's being, Stephen A. Smith before the game said the Celtics are super reliant on just shooting threes. I think, somebody needs to be able to explain to the average NBA viewer what's going on this play. And that's just not happening at the broadcast level. And, I'm sure the higher ups in the NBA are making the decision for it not to be that way. But this is some really advanced offense. And a lot of people just, consume this as chucking 3-point attempts when there's a lot of really advanced stuff going into the shot attempt rather than just the Celtics are just shooting a three. Like a lot of people see the end of the possession and that's all that they digest. They don't digest all the things that go towards making that 3-point attempt. So right here again, right? This ends up Tatum on Josh Hart post up. This is a possession where I'm sure OG Anunoby helps, right? OG Anunoby probably helps here. They get a miss anyway. Yep. They get this tip out, and it's now 3-on-2 back here because Hart's down here because Tatum naturally is fading away when he shoots the ball. You know, from the K, by the way, really great shooter right here in Pritchard. Really underrated. A lot of people don't realize that he would start on a lot of NBA teams. You know, when the design play here is not to get this 3-point attempt for Peyton Pritchard. They get a post up attempt, and they do that really frequently. But people see the result, the fallback option is the three, and they assume that the Celtics are just intentionally shooting threes. When in reality, too, if any team had the opportunity to take this shot, even though it is by the K, you're telling them, hey, you got 8 feet of space here. You got to shoot that. You would say that about any team, but with the Celtics, it's just they shoot a ton of threes, and that's all that. So right here, we got back-to-back plays where there's some mismatches that Precious Achua actually stays with Pritchard really well, but he doesn't stop in time. And then same thing on this next play for Tatum. Doesn't stop in time. Actually gets killed. And an important thing too, Celtics didn't miss much this game as well. So like when they're not missing, even if they didn't shoot that many attempts, they shot 50 or 48% from three. You know, they made more threes than they do on the average day on this game, even though they shot 10 less than they normally do. Right here, this ends up just being Tatum pulling up on a pick and roll attempt, but there's a lot more going into this, right? They send Pritchard to the corner to space there, and watch how Cornette moves to the other block, right? What happens if Cornette doesn't move to the other block is Towns is playing this type of coverage regardless, but both players are going to sell out to Tatum here. If Cornette doesn't move to that other block, Kata's rolling into space where there's already a player. And there's no layup opportunity if that doesn't happen. Of course, there's enough space here for Tatum to get a shot off. I think I would rather give up this shot attempt than this roll pass to where it's 2-on-1 with two bigs with Precious Achua guarding them. But that's a great shot making, and they made a lot more of those than they should probably normally make. So in this play, this ends up being more of a Knicks issue, right? Achua's at center, Josh Hart's at the 4, way too small. Okay, not enough size on the floor at this point in time. They run staggers for Brown. Right. If they have a Pritchard pop covered here, I guess. Pritchard or Cornette just kills Bridges with that first screen. Brown makes a pretty good pass, and like Josh Hart's now here to guard Horford in the corner and Cornette, at the rim. If this is not Josh Hart, Al Horford's getting this ball here and getting a corner 3-point attempt. I think the Celtics space the floor very correctly, even if they now run a little less emphasis on creating 3-point attempts. They space the floor so well to where they get a bunch of good 3-point attempts off. And this is a possession that, since it's Josh Hart contesting it with the rim, Cornette's taking two. Right. So I want to highlight that just because people just think that they're looking to shoot the three every time. Like even in that situation where you could make a decent argument to kick it to the corner, right? They're still taking the two because it is the better shot. On the very next play here, they end up swinging, and you can't close out that hard, right? I mean, that's either a shot or it's this. There's not enough size out here, so I don't think these aggressive type of closeouts are necessarily the idea. That probably shouldn't be the plan, but I don't think the Knicks quite came prepared for what they needed to do. And look at this pass. Really good pass. So midway through, like really early in the third, this was a halftime adjustment. was setting screens with Tatum to get Brunson on Tatum early in the game because Bridges was actually doing a pretty good job this game. They would run this screen for White just to run the spread pick and roll with Cat and Brunson in it. And this is like really genius because obviously it gets Cat and Brunson defending here, and no type of backline. Like Hart's great, man, but he's not erasing shots at the rim. Deuce McBride is great. He's not erasing shots at the rim. And you take your best like screen navigator and perimeter defender out of the play. And I think that's I mean, this is just really great offense. Just the intentional design there. And the Knicks are trying to take this three away. I maybe you just let them live with it, live with this three because there's literally nothing back here. Yeah, Tatum he had a couple of these in the second half where they had no idea. Literally, they ran the same thing again this very next play. Um, what ends up happening is they force him towards the baseline, and he realizes it pretty quick, right? But he just maneuvers his way around. You can't send that much attention to guys, and their center play. They've gotten really good center play from guys who you would not expect them to get really good center play from, and I just want to shout that out real quick. Um, Cornette, Kada, guys are balling. Lead gets cut to 3, as you see, 12-0 run or 12-2 run. There's probably an illegal screen here on Towns. And what happens is the Celtics take advantage of it. They have so many guys out there who can take advantage of mistakes, and not every team can necessarily say that. So I think that's a big part of them that you know it's a big part of why their offense is so good. Besides all the design stuff that they do extra well, they do another like an excellent job here of on this. This is the same play that they just ran before, where probably another questionable screen by Derek White, but they weren't calling it this game. And now Tatum reverses it again. And these are the help guys. These are the guys standing in the way of Jason Tatum dunking the basketball. So obviously they have to cheat really early, and it leads to a Derek White 3. Obviously the plan here is to get a layup attempt. It ends up in a 3 because you try to take away the layup. And they have so many guys who can do this, space at the 3 and shoot it. They have so many guys who can do that. I mean, here there's nothing really to break down. Just isolation, 30-footer. Right? Nothing I can say really about. So on this play, I'm sure a lot of people will see the open 3. But just look how the Celtics are very adamant on trying to get this switch, and the Knicks are actually doing a pretty good job denying it. But what ends up happening is Bridges has to slide over a lot more on this final rescreen. To where just like nobody's going to be able to recover to Tatum here. Just and look at how the rest of this side of the floor is spaced as another part. This corner, Hart can't come over and slide to take away this White drive because it's going to lead to a corner 3. Hauser, he probably can't, or they can't leave Hauser here with Deuce to go take this Tatum pass away. They could potentially, but then there's no size here on the back line. So not only is this already a mediocre defense for the Knicks, but a lot of their good stuff that makes them at least mediocre isn't there with Anunoby not being there, and Precious Achiuwa at center lineups is also like ridiculously bad for the Knicks. Open 3, right? Nobody talks about the really working very hard to get this mismatch, right? The switch hunting up here. They never talk about the science of that. They never talk about how they have the corner spaced properly, and they have Cornette and the dunker spot closer to Sam Hauser to make the pass from Hauser to the dunker spot a lot easier. But they'll talk about the end of the possession, which typically ends up in 3s because defense don't want to give up layups. So after this, it's a blowout game. No reason to break down anything else. Boston Celtics have a really good offense. I think it's really reductive, limiting them to just a 3-point shooting basketball team because they do a lot of other things really great out there on the offensive things, outside of the things. And I think we're doing a disservice by not acknowledging what else they do that makes them very good besides just shooting threes. And I think a lot of this goes for the NBA in general, but I think the Celtics are like the biggest team that we need to advocate for because their offensive stuff is really good. So that'll do it for this one. This is obviously coming in place of a top 100 uh, MLB players episode. That's next week. Sorry, we pushed it back. NL Central video coming out on Thursday.